This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 192, about Daredevil 307, Aftermath. Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 192, about the 7th episode of the 3rd season of Daredevil, Aftermath. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out the group, I'm Chris.
Should know who we all are by now. 7 episodes into Daredevil season 3 and 192 episodes into our coverage of the Defenders shows on Netflix. So should know our voices by now, but just in case.
Okay, I was going to say, so we don't have to do the intros anymore? Great.
Still good, just in case. You never know.
Okay.
You never know. This could be one of those episodes that people just hop on and listen to out of context and out of order to see who everybody is and see what's going on. It does have a lot going on in the episode. Some big revelations and some big moments.
True. Secret basements. Yes. Well, is it really a basement if it's not a basement? If it's just a floor down?
But I guess everything is his basement when you live in the penthouse apartment, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I was a little confused by his secret lair, to be honest. Was it in another room or was it in a service hatch, like completely secret? How were they able to still track that he was in his bedroom with his like tag around his ankle? Mm-hmm. Unless it's directly underneath, I suppose, maybe.
Yeah.
So it still shows up as though he's in that space, but yeah.
It did look like they were just monitoring the room and it was a kind of a two-dimensional space rather than a 3D space. So he's directly below his bed is what it feels like. But anyway, this is our spoiler-filled discussion of 307. Hopefully you've watched the episode. Let's get into the details of it. If this is the first time you're joining us for our podcasts about Daredevil, you can go over and get every one of the podcasts we've done so far over at our website at defenderstvpodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast over there. Leave us your thoughts by voicemail at the right-hand tab where it has a leave voicemail button. Or you can email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com with any of your thoughts about the rest of the season of Daredevil.
Excellent stuff. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, the episode is named Aftermath, obviously, as the aftermath of what happened in last week's episode after the attack on the Bulletin. This is everything that happens afterwards. Simple reasoning for that name. The episode was directed by Tao Fraser. We spoke about this New Zealand director earlier on this year because he directed episode 3 of Iron Fist season 2, This Deadly Secret. What are your favourites, John? The awesomely tense dinner party with all of the characters sitting around the table kind of attacking each other.
The dinner party from hell, no less. Yes. Spaghetti being thrown at the wall in that usual way to see whether it's cooked or not. Don't know whether anyone does that anymore. Was that like that was a thing in the 80s, wasn't it, really? Or maybe even the 90s, that this is the best way to test whether spaghetti is done, rather than simply eat it. You know, food waste and all.
Nice. Good memory, John. Good memory. And this episode was written by Sarah Stryker. First time on the Daredevil show, but Sarah was a staff writer on this entire season of Daredevil. Gets the sole credit for this particular episode, but previously she was a creative assistant on Drunk History, which is pretty interesting way to get into the Marvel TV shows through Drunk History. A very funny comedy show, I must say.
Well, yeah, something I've never seen.
But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Yup. Daredevil is crucified by both the press and the public in the aftermath of the bloody attack on the Bulletin. For Karen, her conflict between Matt, the media, and the truth is very real. Not only is she unable to convince Ray Nadeem that this was not the true Daredevil, but she is unable to reveal to her injured and angry boss, Mitchell Ellison, the true identity of the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and is forced to quit the newspaper. While a panting red-faced Foggy believes he has worked out Wilson Fisk's plans, Matt Murdock, angry at putting his friends in harm's way and worried about the skill of the pretend Daredevil, visits the only person that could have made the Daredevil suit, Melvin Potter. As Matt goes with Potter to his new workshop, he confirms that Fisk forced him to create the suit again. He also reveals that the imposter is an FBI agent, just before he, under instruction from Fisk, tries to frame Matt as the Daredevil. With FBI agents closing in, Matt Murdock manages to escape. Meanwhile, after investigating Jasper Evans, FBI Special Agent Nadeem suspects the FBI paid too high a price for Fisk's cooperation, believing that Fisk is manipulating them. Back at his home, he is confronted in his basement by an uninvited guest.
It is all about the basements this time, isn't it?
Yes, it is all about the base.
Nice. And welcome back, Potter. We will definitely be talking about Melvin Potter, the return of one of our favourite characters from the Daredevil shows. He's been a really interesting character throughout the last couple of seasons, but we talked about him in a minute. Let's get into our top 5 case notes, guys. Chris, let's start off with case note number 1. An early night for Wilson Fisk.
Yes, much like me, Fisk is now known for early nights. This was an interesting one. We were wondering how he was getting around a lot of this. So we do know he has no camera in his bedroom, which seems like a bit of faux pas by the FBI.
It's a little oversight, isn't it?
Yeah, just a slightly. It's just it
doesn't need to be pointed at his bed, but at least in the room somewhere. So
exactly.
Showing that he's there.
I don't know. I wonder whether the terms of his release mean that, he's not going to be spied on whilst he's in bed doing untold damage.
We have talked about Ben Donovan and his ability to write amazing documents, legal documents. So
true.
Look at that apartment and look at everything that he's gotten back as well. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
But no white rabbit in a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. Still, the ownership is contested. And I believe it was owned by Vanessa previously. So who is contesting this?
Absolutely. I wondered what the significance of that kind of almost throwaway line was, actually, that he's not able to get the actual one bit of artwork that he wants to have back, which is the rabbit in the snowstorm, and it's contested. Yeah, I also thought it was kind of owned by Vanessa, or was it? I mean, I just don't know. I was just wondering what the significance of this is. So,
or was it owned by a gallery or something?
Yeah,
like that?
something like that.
I must say, I loved his lawyer explaining that, where he's going, "Yeah, that is contested. So what we could do is we could use this to go against the FBI and get some more information out of them, get some more stuff out of them, basically." And Fisk was like, "No, I want the painting back. Do you not understand that this is part of the deal?" You can see the lawyer kind of going, maybe he won't notice if this painting particularly doesn't appear in the apartment. We've got everything else for him. Maybe he won't notice. I really like.
And speaking of everything else, they even got a secret hatch.
Yes.
Bond villain style.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know what? I'm just going to go into my walk-in dressing room and touch a button under the shelf and boom, magical door. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, it's so obvious when you think about it as to how he was able to control everything. That there was this kind of secret Bond-esque kind of hatch down into his kind of center of operations where... Yeah, you have evil secretary or office manager, should I say, Miss Shelby. She kind of seems like that stormtrooper type person who really shouldn't be doing that kind of work. She should be like, I don't know, doing something else. She should have another job somewhere else. She seems a little too clean cut to be in some kind of secret base of Wilson Fisk.
I got the feeling like this is supposed to be his Oracle, which is a DC reference for all of our DC fans. Like, she's the lady in the chair because she's got a typing brace for her wrist.
Yes, yeah.
So I was like, is she a hacker? Is Shelby some like super hacker for him that he's hired? And I'm like, okay, now I'm just reading into stuff. Probably the actress fell over while on the way to the filming, and they're like, okay, it's fine. Just stick this brace on you. We'll say it's this.
I think that works, Chris. No, I think the typing brace works. Now, I read it completely wrong. I did actually think it was some kind of basement. I kind of forgot that he was in a penthouse apartment, and I was going, does she live there? But this does explain why his company or the holding companies have bought the hotel months and months before he ever got released from prison. So they were doing this work to set up this area for Wilson Fisk before installing him into this penthouse apartment. So it's not like they've just built it in the last couple of days. It is there. And also, it's something that we didn't mention in the big prison fight scene with Matt Murdock. Wilson Fisk does make a call to him from a room where he's able to watch monitors. We didn't even make a comment on that, but this is the room that he was sitting in, obviously, this secure area where he's not being monitored by the FBI.
Yeah, and he has his tentacles kind of spread far and wide and pretty deep as well, given that, he seems to have access to like a lot of different sort of security camera feeds. He's got to the news feed. This is definitely, as you say, Chris, almost like an oracle. This is Jarvis of Wilson Fisk kind of going on. Even to the point where we see it slightly later as well, with Nadeem sort of questioning the prison warden, who then lawyers himself up. So, yeah, there's no doubt about it that this really helps to highlight that, you know, all those early nights for Fisk, it allows him to get ahead of the game, to get those few steps ahead of the FBI, because he's got all his intel directly beneath his bedroom. The only thing I would say, the oversight of the FBI, whatever about not putting a camera in his bedroom, I can understand. I mean, they do it on Big Brother, don't they? They just don't have it in the toilet. So maybe, maybe it'd be all right.
Big Brother, so yeah.
So maybe they should have done that, yeah. But also they should have at least have the rooms or the space immediately above and below also under their control.
Yes,
it definitely smacks that there is something that has been arranged for Wilson Fisk, where the FBI have not stuck to their plan as well as they normally would have.
I'm getting the feeling there's more and more involvement by other agents, but that's saying that now, it's not, we can get into it later, but I do not believe Nadeem is involved anymore at all.
Nope.
But potentially his boss, but I think even that's now a stretch slightly, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the really cool thing is just seeing that creepy smile on Fisk's face, because he goes blank when he's at the front door of his apartment, and he says, "I'm going to bed," and they go, I think the other FBI agent comes in, there's something coming on, or it was over the radio, something. So he doesn't smile. He's very stoic all the way until he gets down and hears and sees the news stories about the Bulletin and everything like that. That just weird, creepy, slightly right lip twisted up kind of grin. I was like, oh, Vincent, only you can do that.
It's so good, isn't it? It's seeing Wilson Fisk really see the impact of what he's been doing, everything that he's been doing. He's able to now monitor it through the TV, watch all of these news channels reporting on what's happened at the Bulletin, him sending his version of Daredevil down there to kill all the people that are there, and hopefully get what he wants out of the situation. It is a bit sad that we don't get to see Thembi Wallace, who's been the presenter of WJBP TV. We don't get to see her as one of the presenters on these TV channels, given that she's been so present throughout Luke Cage. She's been in some of the other shows before, including Daredevil before. We do get to see WHIH News, which is the news channel that we've seen on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., in Iron Man, all the way through the movies and all the way through the TV shows. But it just felt really weird, given Thembi Wallace has been so present over the years on these shows, that she wouldn't be the woman on the scene for this report, unfortunately. But at least we get a little connection to the Marvel Cinematic Universe again.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think that's because the actress is filming something at the moment. I just need to try and check that, so I will come back to that at a later point in this episode.
It is just such a shame for the continuity to not have the character in there, because it's only, it only takes a couple of minutes to get her on that screen and have her there like they've done in the previous series. Anyway, that's just a small aside from myself.
And here's Chris from the future just reporting that Tijana Ricks, who does play, as we said, Thembi Wallace, she's filming Billions at the moment.
Ah, very cool.
So or she was filming Billions when they would have been filming this.
Ah, okay. Working with James Wesley himself.
Yes. So there we go. That is Chris from the future. Diddaloo, 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 diddaloo. That was a Wayne's World reference.
We got it. We're old enough, man.
Yeah. No, I just, for the rest of the kids are beautiful fellow defenders, so may not understand it.
Let's get on to case note number 2, because we have Melvin Potter returning with his wonderful suits. John?
Yes, Melvin Potter, the Half-Blood Prince. Yes, Melvin Potter is back with his wonderful suits. This was really nice. I mean, we did speculate who is possibly the only person that could have made those suits or made the suit for Poindexter, and that is Melvin Potter. And it's really good to see him back here. We also get to see Betsy as well for the first time, his parole officer. I think that's a really nice touch here, because she's been just mentioned all the time by Melvin Potter. You know, she's been the person that Wilson Fisk has been able to hook Melvin Potter with, you know, that he will go after her, kill her, harm her, kidnap her, you name it, if Melvin Potter doesn't do what Wilson Fisk demands. And here, Wilson Fisk demands so much that he is asking Melvin to do another suit and builds him another new studio, which we find out Melvin had destroyed so that he couldn't or didn't have to work for Wilson Fisk ever again. I suppose Melvin thought that with Wilson behind bars, that was the end of it. Little, as I say, did he know that the tentacles of Fisk would reach out of Rikers Island into his life still.
I know Potter gets a lot of criticism for the fact that he's not of full intelligence, but I think the idea that he burnt down his own workshop so that he wouldn't have to work for Wilson Fisk again actually is quite an interesting plan on his side. It feels like he wouldn't have thought that in the past. As you say, he would have gone, well, Wilson Fisk's in jail, therefore I won't have to work for him again. So maybe he would have just left his workshop there, but he burnt it down so that he wouldn't be called upon again in case this happened in the future. So that's quite an intelligent move, I think, from Potter, isn't it?
Definitely. I think, I feel as though he made the choice to leave that life behind once Fisk, kind of had been arrested, and now he's embroiled back in this. And again, he's doing everything that Fisk wants him to do to ultimately put it behind him. Mm-hmm. I do like the fact that he does try to portray Matt Murdock here, that again, Wilson Fisk is that one step ahead to tie Matt Murdock to the Daredevil suit. We see Melvin Potter bring him to his new workshop and then kind of lock him up as the FBI arrive, again, probably tipped off by someone deep within the FBI in order to frame Matt Murdock again. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the great things about that was I did like the fact that Matt managed to break the lock that Melvin had put on the gate. And so there was this fight not only between Melvin and Matt Murdock, and you learn a few other elements in this moment, that the suit was made for someone who was with the FBI, that it was obviously confirmation that Wilson Fisk was behind it, and again behind trying to frame Matt Murdock again. But I think Matt really becomes quite unforgiving here, and we see that a bit in this episode anyway. He says, "Well, he's made his bed, he has to lie in it now." Mm-hmm. He's sided with Wilson Fisk. So that moment where the FBI take Potter, Matt just slinks into the shadows. I thought that was a really nice touch, actually. So yeah, it was a really good moment to have Melvin Potter back, and kind of the complication that I think that brings.
Mm-hmm. I don't think Melvin's slow. He does, as our case note says, build some wonderful suits. Mm-hmm. Like I think he's definitely genius level intellect, because he's building suits that are not your average three-piece tailored suit.
Yeah. I think Betsy mentions it later on. I think we'd probably say he's on the spectrum. He's on the autistic spectrum.
Exactly.
He's able to focus specifically on building these amazing suits, but he is slow in other sides of his personality, I think, is what Betsy's saying. She specifically calls out in her mind that Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk are the same type of person, because both of them abuse the good side of Melvin Potter to get him to do the bad things that they want him to do.
Exactly, and that's kind of where I was heading with that, which I think the fact that he burned down, I think he's, as you said, he's on the spectrum. He's superbly genius level intellect on certain things. Mm-hmm. When it comes to people or reading emotions and things like that, he's not so good. And I don't like this, Matt. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's what we're supposed to be taking from this, is that the old Matt would have saved Melvin.
Yeah.
And also, he didn't take his billy clubs. He had billy clubs, and he doesn't take them with him. Yeah,
no, he absolutely says to Melvin when he offered a new suit, he says, "I've gone beyond that. I'm no longer that person anymore that needs weapons and needs armor to cover my body. I am back to being the Man in Black.
I am the Knight.
Pretty much. But also very telling, he turns around to Melvin when he is locked behind bars and says to Melvin, there is no life for a person like Betsy in your life anymore. Yeah. You've gone beyond that. Effectively putting on Melvin Potter what he's put on himself. He's had to give up everything that he's connected with, every family member, every friend. He's had to give them all up so that he can live the life that he lives. And he feels Melvin should have to do the same if he's going to continue to make suits for Wilson Fisk. If he's going to continue to work for Wilson Fisk, he needs to give up all of his connections as well. So again, very telling the mental state that Matt Murdock is in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he's had a go at Sister Maggie as well, right at the start, saying, you know, this is your fault. You were the one that told me to effectively give yourself up. You know, you spoke with my friends. And Matt really puts a lot of blame onto her for the fact that Wilson Fisk really is playing out his plans in a way that only he knows and the others haven't anticipated.
Yeah.
For me, I really thought that there was a similarity here between Matt's treatment of Melvin and his kind of slightly uncompromising treatment of Sister Maggie as well, in terms of applying the blame. I thought that was really interesting, and I would kind of go with Chris here. Yeah. This is not the Matt Murdock or the Daredevil that we would have seen from season 1 or 2.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, I kind of to wrap up on this case note number 2, it's great. And of course, just a quick Easter egg that Melvin Potter is wearing his Gladiator t-shirt. Mm-hmm. It's very the same design as on his, the costume he would wear in the comic book. So nice comic book nod.
No, that's cool. And he has some pretty good gladiatorial moves on those FBI SWAT team as well. I did like the face plant into the sort of the pile of crates. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. It felt like he was the wrestler versus Matt's boxer. That's what it really felt like at moments in there. I wonder, does he have a wardrobe of those t-shirts? Because I know he wore the exact same t-shirt back in season 1 and in season 2 as well. So I wonder, is it like Wilson Fisk's wardrobe where he just has all of those t-shirts lined up for when he's going to go down and work in the workshop, he's going to dress in his Stiltman gear?
Yeah, probably. He also has the blades from the circular saw, which was on his gauntlets in the comic books.
Very cool.
So he does fight Matt with that. So very cool. But I think very much what we're learning here is that Matt is getting even harder. He doesn't want any human interactions, any attachments whatsoever. So as he kind of goes forward, we're going to see that he does not care about who he hurts. So moving on to case note number 3, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about?
No, absolutely.
So case note number 3, which was a fun one for me because I think this really showed off some fantastic acting and some fantastic character work. The aftermath for Foggy and Karen.
Yeah, Foggy gets red-faced and out of breath.
Because he runs up the stairs. Okay, that we get what you're trying to say. I get you. I'm down with that. He did a lot of exercise.
Yeah, indeed. It clears his head, so he's able to piece together a few bits and bobs that seemingly have fallen out of Marcy's bag. And I really thought all of a sudden that she was going to be a Wilson Fisk plant here, that we're going to get this revelation that little Foggy Bear had been duped here, really.
It's a really confusing moment, isn't it? Because we've seen this type of storyline before in previous Defender shows where a person sees their partner's documentation and realizes, oh no, actually they work for the bad guys, you know? We've seen this done many times before, and because of how it's stretched out over the episode, you're kind of going, is Marcy a bad guy? Is she working for Fisk? Because he seems to have everybody else in his pocket. Does he have her as well, you know? But I love the kind of demented side of Foggy as he's trying to piece stuff together. You see how good a lawyer he is because he's, you know, surrounded by all of these papers all around him as he's trying to piece together what his theory on what's happening.
Yeah, it was very beautiful mind moment-esque for Foggy.
Yeah.
But I like how the whole thing starts, which is he's the counsel for Karen, and we see Agent Nadeem still trying to push basically the storyline that Fisk wants, which is this is Daredevil, he did it all, not willing to listen to anything. And actually, again, we see Karen, while Nadeem is, I wouldn't say interviewing, but not kind of like with a charged interview. And like they haven't put any charges against Karen or anything like this.
Yeah.
She does bring up like Red Lion and all the clues that she's laid at his feet. And he's like, have you even looked at them yet? And he goes, no, not yet. And you're like, well, that like they are not looking at any other direction other than the way Fisk is pointing him at this point.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it does kind of strike me how bad an investigator Nadeem is coming across here. You know, we've seen someone as amazing as Misty Knight is written throughout previous shows, where she walks into a situation, reads the situation, and then makes up her mind on what she wants to investigate. Whereas Nadeem has been pointed down these directions and won't give them up. He's tenacious about the direction he's been pointed in, as opposed to being tenacious about something that he's discovered. And it's starting to backfire on him. As we get through this episode, we see that he's realizing that Karen may be right here, and he is starting to believe her story. There's no reason why he shouldn't have believed it from the first moment she came in. She's been, she's been an upstanding member of the community. She's a reporter for a newspaper who's previously investigated these stories before. And he's realizing, hang on, maybe we have been manipulated. And if I report that, then I'm going to lose everything. We're going to lose all of the people that we've arrested. We're going to lose everything that's happened since we brought Wilson Fisk into custody and released him from prison.
Yeah, and I think that's very much the crux of everything now that we've kind of seen, which is Nadeem doesn't want to do this because it will call into question all the Albanians. Mm-hmm. It will call into question all of the political people. I think it was like the mayor's secretary, and there was a laundry list of corrupt officials that were arrested in that opening scene where they kind of arrest the Albanians and Mother Teresa.
And you get the feeling with the amount of things that have been returned to Wilson Fisk that things that we haven't seen, potentially, he's also been giving up other people as well. It's not just the Albanians. It feels like he's now going down his whole list of everybody, and he's been giving those up over and over again. It seems like this is a huge collar for Nadeem to have gone through. And if he loses that, he kind of loses his career, because this was kind of his last chance to get to where he's achieved in his career. So,
yeah. And that's what Foggy kind of figures out, after his jaunt with Marcy. They do say that this survivor intercourse is a thing, which I never knew.
Yeah, it's kind of like survivor's guilt, really.
Well,
and it's the adrenaline and all this kind of stuff.
Well, to roll it back, to be honest, before they even have sex, the whole thing that's happening here with Foggy is that he's proposing to Marcy. He's going, I almost died last night. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. All I could think about was, I'll never see you again. It is a really human moment. Yeah, I totally believe that this is exactly what would happen if you get home after a night where you feel you could have died. You're going to throw yourself in the arms of the person you love. Of course, it totally makes sense as a moment for these two characters.
I'm glad she says no. Like, I'm glad. I think it's...
Well, she puts the brakes on, doesn't she? She's kind of like, just, whoa, Romeo, hold the horses. You've just gone through a traumatic thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to take the proposal at this moment. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting moment. And I think Foggy and Karen here just really shine. And I do like the interaction with Nadeem as well. He is caught between a rock and a hard place. He's gotten his promotion coming through. Mm-hmm. Yet at the same time, he's now being asked to follow up on those very things that got him that promotion. And call into question the fact that he may have blindly followed Wilson Fisk's tip-offs rather than simply maybe looking at them a bit more critically. So it's really interesting, and I think that's his reticence here from going down that avenue. But nonetheless, he has been told this, and I like the fact that Karen reiterates her leads that she has come to find out back whilst she's being interviewed by him following the Bulletin kind of massacre, I suppose. I think that's really, really good.
Definitely. Let's go on to a bit more about Karen, but just one moment in the episode that I really, really enjoyed is when herself and Foggy are standing in the FBI station, and you see all of the phones laid out in the plastic bags, ringing, and text messages coming in. People going to voicemail, obviously, for their family members who are in hospital or are just missing at the moment, or their phones are just missing at the moment. But that moment with Karen, when she's realizing the impact of what's happened, of all the other people that didn't escape the previous night's events, it's really, really good, and does lead us into Karen going into a pretty dark place. Before our case note number 4, Karen making her phone call home, finally, after a few years now since we've had any kind of discussions about what's happening in the past or happened in the past with her family. But these phone calls that she hears drive her to go to the hospital, Foggy asking, you know, are you sick? Are you hurt? Did we miss something? And she's going, no, but I'm the only one that isn't hurt. I've got to go and see what's happened to the rest of the people that I work with, the Bulletin. Her moment with Ellis to begin with. Should we start there?
Yeah.
Well, before she even goes into the room, as she goes into the room, some of the staff are blaming her. The lady who walks out with Ellis, which was another one of, I believe, his reporters, senior reporters.
Yeah, she gives a really nasty look
and stare, and like kind of almost like a shoulder bump. So the rest of the staff do blame Karen for this massacre, or she brought the wolf to the door by bringing the lamb inside. Very much kind of that is the approach they're taking. So first of all, we get that sense, and then as you say, she goes into Ellis, and this gets tough.
Like, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Because we do have that moment from Ellison where he's saying this is everyone in Hell's Kitchen's fight. This whole concept, this whole thing of taking down Wilson Fisk is everybody's fight. But it does feel like he had that choice. Karen had that choice. Jasper Evans had that choice. Obviously, Foggy and Matt have that choice. But it feels like the other people that are the collateral damage within the Bulletin didn't have that choice. And that's why Karen's getting the blame. That's what it feels like. We hear the story of one of the reporters who, unfortunately, is brain damaged and is just being kept alive by machines, and the decision is being made as to whether that machine gets turned off and they die. That's the conversation they're having as Karen arrives. So understandably, it's a really tough conversation, and all of those people were just there doing their jobs the night that this happened. So yeah, kind of see why they have this challenging moment with Karen when she arrives. If it wasn't for her, this wouldn't have happened, and they didn't get a choice whether they were in the building or not.
Yeah, and what transcribes is obviously Karen not holding her feelings or her emotions back on her face too well. And Ellis kind of investigating and understanding that, no, Karen knows who Daredevil is.
Well, yeah, she does make the fundamental mistake of saying, that guy wasn't Daredevil, which kind of does express that you know exactly who Daredevil is. If you say that too often, people are going to look at you and go, well, obviously you know who Daredevil is then, clearly. It's not just because you bumped into him in the street once in the past. It's because you know exactly who he is.
Yeah, it's the automatic question comes as to, well, why would you say that? Why do you think that? And of course, like for Ellison, his immediate logic would say that is because, given Karen's background, she knows something about the true identity of Daredevil. I like how with this scene, Ellison really flips, actually. He goes from it being like, we're all in this together, the fight against Fisk is everyone's fight, it's not your fault, Karen, to then really turning on her because she won't give this information that will allow them to all go after Wilson Fisk within the newspaper to publish this. So he really does turn on her. Like, it's an interesting thing. I don't know kind of the journalistic code very well, but I mean, it is that thing is, do you give up your sources? So, in this instance, is the fact that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, Daredevil is Matt Murdock, that's Karen's kind of confidential source, almost a bit like attorney-client privilege. In the world of journalism, does that equally stand? Or is it that she really is obligated to tell Ellison who Daredevil is as she thinks it, given, she knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil? So I was kind of like, I was a little unclear as to what the situation was there, but I did like how he kind of flipped it and rounded on her and ultimately gives her that ultimatum to Karen, tell me who is Daredevil or who you think it is, or quit the Bulletin, basically. It's your choice. And then, we don't see her quit the Bulletin, but then we see kind of this all spill out into her phone call back home to her dad, which is really, really brutal as well. I think Karen here is really in bits. She's effectively been given an ultimatum to lose her job. She has just been attacked and lost Jasper Evans. There are the FBI after her friend, Matt Murdock. is the FBI going after Daredevil, who she knows that wasn't the true Daredevil. Her relationship with Ellison has broken down, and then we see this massive rebuff by her father in the car as she's calling home, where, you know, despite the fact that he says you can call at any time, she's not able to visit. And you know, he really makes a cutting remark to her when she says that she was just trying to help. I think he comes back with, that's all you ever try to do, as though, and then mess it up. The inference is that, and it never works. So why do you keep trying to help? And it's a real tough moment. You really feel for Karen Page in this moment.
You really do. And it is that thing of she's going, can I just stay for a few days with you because everything's falling apart? And he goes, you can call whenever you want to, and then insults her immediately afterwards and goes goodnight and hangs up. Like, it's not like she's going to be able to make another phone call back to him, something else, or if something else goes wrong in the future. It really does feel like he's saying to her, I'm saying to you, you can call whenever you want to, but I don't really want you to call or visit or come anywhere near us again. So things were bad for him. And to quote Guardians of the Galaxy, this guy is an a-hole. This is his daughter at the end of the day. I don't care what happened. She's calling in desperation, and it feels like she hasn't been in contact with him at all for years. And this is how he treats her? Yeah, not cool.
Oh, just give us the Karen flashback episode now. Give us the explanation of what happened. We're just getting drip fed more and more information.
I'm happy to know that it's probably coming in this season. There's been much more allusion to it this season than there has in any other season before. And I'm happy to see her have the fall so that we can see what the flashback is, that we can see what actually happened in the future. The story right now is really exciting and really interesting for me. So I don't want them to just put the brakes on and show us a flashback episode next episode. I want to see what actually is happening and what actually is going on. So
I agree with you. I'm sorry. It's more, I will riot if we get to episode 13 and we still don't know the full history of Karen. Mm-hmm. No, and I agree. I don't think they should put full on breaks. I think it should be like she gets super drunk and tells the history of everything to Foggy.
Right.
And we get a 15-minute monologue kind of thing. Cause the actress could definitely pull that off. It's just, I need to know why a father would do that and why he would say, that's what you do, Karen. And no, you cannot stay here. And he knows that she's been shot at because Dad does say, oh, that's where you worked, wasn't it? Were you there? So obviously he is following her. Like it's very, very strange. But yeah, I'm going to riot. I'm putting it officially here. I will fully Hulk out.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, but hopefully we'll get some more details on Karen Page in the future. Let's get on to our final case note. Case note number 5. My favourite quote from the episode, your desperation diminishes you, Special Agent. As we have Agent Nadeem confronting Fisk, finally, the information that he's been given from Foggy Nelson and Karen Page, as we mentioned earlier on, is really seeping into Agent Nadeem. He is really realising how much he's being manipulated, and nothing tells him that more than when he opens the door to Fisk's apartment, which he doesn't seem to have been around for a few days, and sees the luxury that Wilson Fisk is living in right now. He just seems highly offended by the idea that this guy is living. Everybody's been telling him he's living in this penthouse and he's getting great food and everything's going great for him. But when you walk into that room and you see what he's been surrounded by, the artwork, the furniture he's got. The last time Nadeem was there, if I remember correctly, there was one table with an uncomfortable chair in the middle of the room where Fisk was. And now he's surrounded in the lap of luxury right now. So you can see why Nadeem is suddenly going, oh, hang on a second, maybe they have a point here.
Yeah, no, it comes as a real shock to him. Mm-hmm. But this interaction between Nadeem and Fisk, I think, is really intriguing because, it's like Nadeem is really just coming out with it and saying, tell me you haven't been stringing me along here, that this is all above board and legitimate, that you're not playing and manipulating the FBI. Mm-hmm. And of course, in Fisk's sort of indomitable kind of spirit, he's like, have a little faith in me, Special Agent Nadeem. I am a better man than Jiggy. Because we have the jiggy tale. We've had the Norwegian, the old Norwegian man, Mr. Larson, and now we have the jiggy tale from Nadim, the person who would always seem like the good guy, but ultimately is filling the trunk of your car and your child's bedroom with about 10 kilos worth of heroin. So yeah, it's a real kind of interesting moment, and one that I don't think is fully resolved. I mean, in the sense that Nadim comes out of there, I think, thinking, yes, this is it. He's being manipulated. But it's really, what is he going to do? That's what I really want to know. How is he going to get some kind of resolution on this? Because he's so linked to Wilson Fisk, his release, the takedown of the Albanians, all of this is absolutely centered on him.
And what's probably worse is that final moment with Fisk when he asks him those questions. Fisk goes, effectively, get out. I'm not going to give you any more information, Nadim. Get out. Like, this guy works for Nadim, effectively. The only reason he's out of prison is because of the deal that's been done with Nadim. Nadim should have the right to ask him any question he wants and get a yes or no answer, or more details if that's what he wants. That's what the deal is. But Fisk just dismisses him and goes, that's it. You're done. Off you go. And also, can I just give a big compliment to the writer for using the story of Jiggy, having Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio saying the words, I'm a better man than Jiggy, is fantastic. Those words in his mouth are brilliant.
Yeah, I think very much it's the penny is falling for Nadim, but it's one of those, do you know those arcade ones where it's like bouncing everywhere? Like, that is slowly what's happening. All the things are kind of lining up. It hasn't tipped the full point yet at this part of the scenes.
You're so close to talking about the TV show Tipping Point, Chris, aren't you?
Yeah, that's all I want to do. That's literally, so surprise, fellow defenders, we're actually rebranding as Tipping Point.
To give Nadim a little bit of credit, I think he doesn't want to believe that he has had the wool pulled over his eyes as much as he has. I think he's trying to make sure that he's been doing the right thing the whole time. That's kind of what he says to his boss, right? That if they give all this information over about Fisk, then that's it. They're done. Their careers are all over and everybody goes free. So I think he's kind of going, right, give me a couple of days. I'll sort this out. I'll get it all lined back up. And even if it is going wrong, maybe I can turn it back to being in the right position and we can be in the right position. I think that's where he kind of feels like. So by the end of this episode, he is believing Karen and Foggy, but he's trying to see if there's any way that he can get himself out of this situation.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. We later see him. He goes home for his celebration. The wife has organized his family to come over to celebrate his promotion. We again see his brother's wife who suffered through the cancer treatments. We see his brother, we see his father, I believe it is, and then we see the wife giving a great speech.
Yeah.
And it kind of then descends where she's discovered that he's been lying to her about being in the Bulletin, and it looks like he was going to dismiss her completely, and now then he kind of goes, okay, which is good. It's a nice moment between to show that he's still human.
Yeah. I love how quickly she flips as well. I love that she's making that speech in front of the entire family and then goes, and I just need a quick word with you in the kitchen. You lied to me. Never lie to me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is really nice, I think, this interaction between Nadim and his wife. We've seen her come to his office in the hotel, saying that their child is going to the uncles or the aunties or to the sisters to really, he can't deal with what his dad is. He's not telling them the full truth, despite that kind of pep talk by his boss about how he should treat his child as the snitch, the informant, the CI. But nonetheless, we see that he's got his promotion. The pool is starting to be built here. We have the great cupcake quiz with the missing or eaten cupcakes, which is, congratulations, Ray, on your promotion.
That took a little bit of pausing to work out, didn't it?
He's getting his recognition, but at the same time, despite kind of bringing his family back on the even keel, there's something there that, his wife is saying this investigation will or is affecting the family. And there is part of me still that I don't think Nadeem is with Fisk, or do I? I'm kind of still a little suspicious. I'm kind of just feeling that, some of the things that Fisk says to him when he confronts him, I think can be taken two ways. But, your desperation diminishes you, Special Agent. Great line. It could be a pep talk from Fisk in code saying, don't get desperate, make sure you keep a level head. In the same way, I think that where he goes, have a little faith in me, Special Agent Nadeem, that there is this thing of, you will be rewarded. Maybe I am still clinging on to the fact that could be the case, but it does look increasingly less likely for sure.
But then they do show you that he's getting a pool built into his back garden, which he promised to his son.
Yes.
But it was too much money.
Yeah.
So he's got the influx of money with the promotion, which only happened a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of like,
yeah,
where did that money come from? So they very much are trying to go, no, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Oh, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Oh, which is he?
I totally believe that Nadeem is above board now. I'm totally convinced. And I think that was just a little bit of a writer flourish to show that everything's going well for him and he doesn't want to lose out. And he says to his wife, I'm trying to keep everything together here. What I do really like about these scenes as well, where he goes home for the party, is we haven't seen him back in his house since the first episode. And they were very specific about him being at home in that first episode and being around the family. And then from then on, it feels like he's been sleeping at his office. He's been trying to keep his entire world from falling apart. I think he's just really worried about his career, that he may have built his career on shifting sands, and those shifting sands are Fisk and his honesty with him. He believes Fisk is being honest. He believes Fisk is giving over the bad guys that he has made the agreement that he will be, and now suddenly the rug is being pulled out from underneath him. So I don't feel that Nadeem's made a deal with Fisk. I feel that he's just built his entire castle on shifting sands, as the phrase goes.
That's a good...
Yeah.
That could be.
No, absolutely.
It'd be good to see how that goes.
But we do get an uninvited guest here at Nadeem's party, the man in black himself, Matt Murdock. I really like this moment of Matt confronting Nadeem, seeing whether he can work with him. And certainly, I think that moment when they're speaking and Matt Murdock kind of goes, shh, and points up the stairwell as then his son Sammy opens the door, calling down. There's a real nice move from Matt Murdock. I think it's very cool how that's captured as well.
Yeah.
In the midst of this discussion about who would you trust and all that, there's this little moment where we're reconnected as an audience with the skill of Matt Murdock, which is, he's got bat hearing effectively. So really sensitive hearing.
It is really cool. And what I also like about that scene is that happens directly after the moment with his wife where she says, I just want to make sure you never lie to me. He goes downstairs, Daredevil arrives, and then he instantly says to his son, who's asking, Mom wants to know where you are. And he goes, oh, I smashed a bottle of beer down here. There's glass everywhere, Sammy. Don't come down. So instantly after that scene, the next scene in the TV show is him again lying to his wife, once again covering up what's going on in his FBI life. Not very good, right?
So very quickly, before we get back into the Man in Black, he shouldn't have to tell her everything. And this is part of me getting in this, which is there are NDAs, there are national security issues. Yep. Personally, in my own work, my partner will ask me, oh, how was work today? I'm like, well, I can't tell you this, but this was really good.
And sometimes she just wouldn't care either, Chris. And that I understand. Yeah. I think the point here with his wife, and I totally understand this, he's basically saying that he's a desk jockey. He's someone that sits behind his desk and writes up reports. Yet now 3 times he's been shot at and almost killed and hasn't said to her how much danger he's in. And now he's got Daredevil in his basement, breaking into his house and effectively hitting him a couple of times while Ray Nadeem is trying to fight back against him. He does get hit a couple of times and then kind of just covers it up. Now, again, I probably would have covered that up if Daredevil's in the basement with me. I'm not going to call out to my wife. There is a vigilante down here. Don't come down, obviously. I totally understand that.
There's a guy who might kill you.
Yeah.
No. Stay where you are. He might just throw something through the wall and kill. It's fine.
Yeah. So I kind of understand why he lied in that situation, but I think her point is valid that she knows he works for the FBI. She knows that there's things he can't say to her, but what she wants to know is if he's not safe or if he's gone through a night that was a really bad night where he almost died, she wants to at least be told in the same way that Marcy wanted to be told by Foggy. That's all.
Yeah, I get it.
So if you ever go through a day where you almost got killed in work, Chris, tell your wife.
Yeah,
I will.
And I think it's just she wants to know if he's coming home. Mm-hmm. You know, she's probably had sleepless nights and he's not come back when he said he will do. So it's just, she needs to know when he's going to be around the house. Yeah. As I say, we haven't seen him around the house since the first episode. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the reason for this, confrontation in their home at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So moving back to what we have old DD in the house, literally. And we do see that now Ray and Dean knows that there was another Daredevil. He at least suspected, like, Daredevil, Matt says, that wasn't me. And then drops the bombshell that the person who that was works for the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
For us, the viewer, it's not a shock. But for both Matt and Nadeem, for Ray, this would be a revelation.
Can I say, really unusually for me, because I do watch these episodes twice, this was a shock. I missed the line from Melvin Potter where he said that it was an FBI agent. I was going, how does Matt know that it's an FBI agent? Is it just the way he moved in the fight? Does he know how FBI agents are trained? I thought he was like using some mastermind trick. And then John afterwards went, no, Melvin told him in that discussion. He said it's an FBI guy. I'm like, oh, okay, so he's not that great a detective.
Yeah. No. He's not the world's greatest detective. He's like
he's not Poirot.
He's New York's like third best detective. Like, or Hell's Kitchen's best.
Second best after Jessica Jones, obviously.
Yeah.
True, actually. So he's not even the best in Hell's Kitchen. I'm starting to feel really bad for Matt. It's just like, you have to wait until someone tells you something. All right.
So I know how Nadeem felt in that moment when Matt reveals it to him. I know exactly how he felt because I was going, oh my God, that's amazing. Oh, okay. Not that amazing. All right.
You're clutching your pearls. Oh my stars.
Like Miss Marple.
Guys, I think that's the end of our top 5 case notes for this episode. Any other notes about the episode that we haven't talked about at all?
I just have one, which is I really liked that Wilson Fisk is looking out for Poindexter, who we hear is laying low as ordered after the incident in the Bulletin. But it's really that, they know he's got issues, and that he gives Felix Manning the instruction to just watch out for Poindexter, to make sure that he is okay, or at least that he is doing what they expect as part of this plan. Whether there is true caring and sharing of Wilson Fisk with Poindexter at this stage, I don't know, but it seems as though it's getting there for sure.
Yeah, I really like that as well. It's a nice little moment. Chris, anything from you though?
Nothing for me, aside from the fight with Melvin and Matt. Mm-hmm. It felt very much like the Arkham City games to me.
Right.
Where you just kind of have Matt kind of jumping out of the shadows, like hitting them up a bit and then jumping back into the shadows.
Right. Yeah.
You mean Batman?
It just, yeah.
I do love how he disappears into the background as Melvin gets arrested. That's a really harsh Matt, but a nice moment, and you can kind of see why nobody would notice that he's there, since Melvin's been the one cracking crates open with FBI members' heads and stuff. You can kind of see that it was him that was doing it. Really good stuff. Just to mention Melvin Potter as well, we actually mentioned this back in season 1, the first time that we heard about Betsy and heard about Fisk putting pressure on Melvin Potter for Betsy. Once again, that is a moment from the Born Again arc, that is specifically on the page where Melvin Potter is being forced to make the Daredevil outfit for another person that takes on the mantle of Daredevil to blame Matt Murdock for an incident. That is Melvin Potter. He specifically says, if I don't do this, Betsy will be killed. So that's exactly where that came from. It's just interesting that they have taken that one panel in that comic book and used it now 3 times, I think, over the course of the last couple of seasons. But it's nice, at least we saw Betsy this episode.
100%.
That's it for notes. Chris, let's get on to you. kick us off first. Do you defend Daredevil Season 3, Episode 7, Aftermath?
I do. This episode was really good. Again, it's there. I have to defend it. But what I'm finding is it did slow down a bit, which is understandable when you are looking at the aftermath of an episode like Episode 6. So it's a tough one, and I get that. I understand that you can't keep the adrenaline pumping after such an episode. Otherwise, it just wouldn't feel like the Daredevil. It wouldn't feel like, so they need to progress the story. So I get what they did and why they're doing it. And it was still good. It was good to see Melvin. Like, I still love Foggy, and his storylines, and just seeing more of him. As I said, I will riot if we don't see the backstory of Karen very soon laid out by the end of this season. If we don't, I'm just, that's it for me. But no, seriously, it's just, they're moving her character along. They're more than drip feeding. They're opening the tap just slightly, a bit further. And then Ray, seeing that Ray is finally understanding that he may be played, it's just good. It's just, I could see some people not enjoying this episode as much because it follows such an action-packed episode previously. But no, I still do defend this because it does exactly what it does. It moves it on. So yeah, I defend this episode 7 of Daredevil. John, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
I do defend Aftermath, this episode of Daredevil. I give it 4 hospital dinners out of 5. Yeah, I thought this had a tough remit to get through, given the revelation of the Daredevil imposter from the previous episode. And I thought it did really well, in particular around Foggy and Karen and that trauma, and how Karen's trauma gets compounded with her phone home, which I completely agree with you, Chris. This is shaping up quite nicely. The teasing that is coming out about Karen's background, which we've had now on a couple of the episodes. So really intrigued for that. I love Foggy literally clearing his head and finding out about Fisk's motives. That moment of clarity coming from him, I thought was really, really good. The relationship with Special Agent Nadeem and Matt Murdock now, this tentative few steps towards coming together to focus on who the man in the Daredevil outfit is and how Wilson Fisk can potentially be stopped. I love that moment of realization by Nadeem that he is between a rock and a hard place here, that he has everything to owe to Wilson Fisk and that investigation for his pool, his better finances, his promotion, yet these pesky kids in Foggy and Karen really asking of him some difficult questions, and now having the Man in Black down in his basement. So that was really good. I like the fact as well that we didn't really see Poindexter in this episode as well, that he was completely removed from the equation and literally laying low. So this was excellent stuff. So yes, I do defend this episode of Daredevil. So Derek, do you defend episode 7 of Daredevil season 3?
I defend it, yeah. A bit of a functional episode at times this time. It was really important to see the aftermath of what happened in the Bulletin. It's a very important thing to happen. It seemed like a really good Ray Nadeem episode as he starts to put the pieces together. That great moment between him and Fisk within this episode, but not a huge amount here that I'd come back and just watch this episode for. It's nice to see Melvin Potter back again. It's nice to have that kind of resolved, but I did like the twist of Melvin Potter putting Daredevil behind bars as he was instructed by Fisk to do. I think that was quite cool, but not a huge amount here that I come back to. It's a middling episode of the season for me, but a necessary one. And there's nothing wrong with that, but those are needed as well. Otherwise we would have just people being punched in the face, obviously. So as I've said before, we do need episodes like this as well, but really looking forward to the next episode. Lots of good setup in here. Nothing particularly bad about this episode, but nothing particularly amazing stood out at this time, but enjoyed it overall. I think it's time to get on to some feedback as we close out the episode, guys.
Sounds like a plan.
Tina Brown left some feedback on each of the episodes on the spoiler post over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. Just going to go into the thoughts on episode 6, the last episode. She says it's an amazing episode. The collateral damage is piling up. Sorry, but it was not a good plan to have Jasper Evans brought to the Bulletin. I know they have this whole we don't know who is enthralled to Fisk thing, but seriously, this is a very bad plan. And stop having Ellis apologize to Karen to build up her character. It's really starting to bother me. There was no way to protect that guy, Jasper Evans. And once again, Karen seems surprised that taking out the criminal class would bring repercussions. Matt will carry this guilt with him along with all of the rest. Puts everyone in such an interesting place for the rest of the series. I know opinions may vary, but this is my hot take.
Thanks for that, Tina. At least in this episode, Ellis is no longer apologizing to Karen. Mm-hmm. He's given her an ultimatum. So he's not trying to build up the character anymore, which is, I could see why. I think it's more of a mentor-mentee kind of situation that we were getting in this. But now the mentor has turned on the mentee, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in terms of bringing Jasper to the Bulletin, it's an interesting choice, but I think they were holding him there. I don't think it was bringing him permanently. I think it was more of a holding situation because the FBI were on the way to bring him into custody. And I suppose really all they wanted to do at that moment was get it on tape, his confession, his opinion and point of view of what's happened. So I think it was more of a holding exercise. I don't think it was not supposed to be the way it went down. Jasper Evans was supposed to give his story in FBI custody, and he was simply being held here. But certainly, we see Wilson Fisk, his tentacles, he has a lot of contacts, and he will use them to maximum effect, and timing in order to protect, what he is doing.
Yeah. I wonder if the FBI were dragging their feet on their way to the Bulletin.
I'd say so.
Exactly. And this is the thing. It was led by Nadeem. It's kind of what I was mentioning today. Did he know what the timing was so that he would arrive at that critical moment? So I don't know. I could go around and around in circles thinking Nadeem, is he, isn't he? Is he, isn't he? Is he, isn't he? At least I know that Poindexter is.
Yes, exactly.
Hooray.
Exactly. John, do you want to say the next piece of feedback?
Robert Phillips also left some thoughts on episode 6. He says, this was a hard and brilliant episode to watch. The Daredevil becoming supervillain was an arc I thought Matt might take, but Dex doing it may be the salvation that Matthew needs. Also lovely to see Sister Maggie recounting her tales of Matt's childhood, and Nadeem staying true, possibly the only FBI agent I now believe in.
Good on you, Robert.
Excellent, yeah. We have to believe in Agent Nadeem. Or do we?
We also have some feedback on episode 7 from our Facebook group. First up is Tina Brown. She says, now Maggie is doing the apologize for the stupid plan thing. Stop it. Go Ellis. And go Foggy and Marcy too. This was such a human reaction to a dangerous situation. I loved it. And Agent Nadeem is able to look past his own ego and admit he might be wrong. I am loving his character development. Mm-hmm. Again, his initial reaction to possibly being made a fool of was so human. But rather than stick his head in the sand, he decides he can't ignore his doubts any longer. Maggie's not apologizing, kinda. Yeah.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Is she apologizing, or does she know Matt Murdock? You know, she has brought him up in the orphanage as a kid. She knows maybe how to soothe him down, settle him down, for sure. So it's interesting because, Matt does go full on at her and blames her for stuff at the start here, which I thought was kind of a bit uncalled for. So I like the fact that, to me, I saw this as her trying to soothe his broken arms, legs, face, and everything else, because he's pretty beaten up, to be fair.
He is, and I do love that her response is, well, then I'm just never going to give you my opinion again, am I? Which is exactly what everybody that doesn't take responsibility for their actions says. And then instantly, I think the next conversation they have, or the next sentence they have, is her giving the opinion and Matt kind of criticizing her about it as well. So I'm not sure whether she's taking responsibility or apologizing for the stupid plan. I think she's saying anything she can just to maybe get the opportunity to stop him from bleeding for a couple of minutes. She does care for him. So.
Yeah, but thank you, Tina, so much. Yeah, I completely love the character development of Nadeem here, especially with his family. And again, Foggy and Ellis, certainly, I think, are really good with their reaction to the whole thing that they've just gone through. Really good. Yeah. We have some more feedback from episode 7 through Anya Leah. She says, Jasper Evans is dead. He leaves a son behind, and that's on me. So we have son without a father, and the desperation in Matt's voice telling this to Sister Maggie. Charlie Cox is just killing it. I can hear the entire life story of Matt Murdock in this single line. His drives and motivations and deepest fear all in one sentence. Was it only for this scene? I would still love this episode. But then there is some excellent writing as well. All those mobile phones in their plastic bags, all those text messages, it's gut-wrenching. And of course, Fisk is 5 steps ahead all the time. He even has his own control room too. Well, control things from. How could you ever think he would leave a loose end like Melvin Potter? My heart finally breaks when Matt, despite all his pain and tiredness, forces himself to go and find Betsy and warn her, just to get her yelling at him that he is just like Fisk. My hopes so far in this season that 2 good grown-up men will be able to actually talk to each other. Thank you so much, Anya. Yes, it's a really interesting moment where Matt probably does one thing that his old self, his old Daredevil would have done. You know, we say that he would have looked to have saved Melvin Potter, or at least tried to. And in all of the chaos going on, he does take time out to warn Betsy, and just say, you've been warned, if nothing else. And I thought that was an interesting little aside, definitely.
Yeah, but he does do it in a very harsh way.
Oh, definitely.
He goes to her and says, get out of town, you can't save Melvin. You know, like obviously her instinct would be to go and protect her partner, who is being taken down by the police. You know, that would be the instinct. But he tells her, no, just get out of town or else you're going to die too. Pretty harsh.
He is pretty harsh in this one, yeah. Yes. Thank you so much as usual. And if you have enjoyed all 7 episodes of our review of this season so far, don't forget to jump over to Apple Podcasts and share the love by sharing the podcast and writing us a review. Every review counts. So even if it's not on Apple Podcasts, make sure over on Spotify or Google Podcasts, make sure you write reviews there as well. All the love helps. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Make sure you've subscribed at all of our podcast areas over at defenderstvpodcast.com. You can find links to all the areas we are on. Our next episode will be for Daredevil season 3 episode 8, Upstairs Downstairs, and it's out later this week.
Yes, I believe that's a costume drama from the 1900s, so we're going to see Matt Murdock dressed up as a upperclassman upstairs dealing with the servants downstairs, or the other way around? Would he be a servant downstairs dealing with Fisk upstairs? What do you think?
I was thinking it was some kind of 70s sitcom from the BBC or ITV. I can't remember.
Upstairs Downstairs was definitely not a sitcom. It was the precursor to Downton Abbey, basically.
Oh, like class warfare.
Yeah,
excellent.
Basically. So we'll see how that plays out at our next episode of Daredevil. Thanks so much for joining us, fellow defenders.
Yeah, thank you so much, fellow defenders, for joining us. As always, it's been a pleasure. And we will speak with you again soon. Bye.